The long-awaited day had arrived. Laura was finally going to meet her charming prince in person and could barely contain her excitement for the dinner. As she was about to leave, her friend stopped her. "You shouldn't go. He is not who he seems to be." Now, Laura finds herself torn. Should she ignore the warning and follow her heart, or trust her friend's words? Hello, my friends. I am Linda, and this is Linda's Love Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. Laura always dreamed of finding true love. At 32 years old, she already had a stable career as a marketing analyst at a medium-sized company, a cozy apartment, and a circle of loyal friends. But she was missing that special someone to share her life with. In recent months, Laura had ventured into a series of unusual and even comical dates. There was the guy who insisted on bringing his pet iguana to dinner, which resulted in a frightened waiter and a ruined salad. Then there was the aspiring magician who spent the whole evening trying to impress her with poorly executed tricks, including accidentally making the restaurant bill disappear. And how could she forget the guy who showed up dressed as a pirate, claiming it was to break the ice, but only managed to scare the children at the next table? After yet another one of these frustrating experiences, Laura vented to her co-worker, Mariana, during their lunch break. The two were sitting on a bench in the garden in front of the company's building, enjoying the mild autumn sun. "I just don't know what to do anymore, Mariana," sighed Laura, taking a disheartened bite of her sandwich. "It seems like all the normal, interesting guys in town have disappeared." Mariana laughed, shaking her head. "Maybe you're looking in the wrong places. Have you thought about trying a dating app? My cousin met her boyfriend that way and they're super happy." Laura frowned, hesitant. "I don't know. I'm a little scared of those apps. What if I match with a maniac?" It was at that moment Philip joined them, sitting down on the bench with his lunchbox. Philip was Laura's best friend at work. They had met 5 years ago when Laura joined the company, and since then they had formed an incredible partnership, both professionally and personally. "What are we talking about?" he asked, curious. "I'm suggesting that Laura try a dating app," explained Mariana. "What do you think?" Philip instantly looked worried. "Oh, I don't know. It can be dangerous to meet someone without having any references. Laura, you have to be very careful if you decide to do this." Laura smiled, touched by her friend's concern. "Relax, Phil. I know how to take care of myself. Besides, it doesn't hurt to take a look, right?" That night at home, Laura downloaded one of the most popular apps and created her profile. She carefully chose her best photos and wrote a description that reflected her fun personality and her love for books, travel, and indie music. It didn't take long for her to start receiving matches. Among dozens of profiles, one in particular caught her attention. Ryan, 34 years old, an executive at a tech company. His photos showed a tall man with green eyes and a captivating smile. But it was his description that really won her over. It seemed like they had everything in common, from musical tastes to a love for Thai food. Laura and Ryan began exchanging messages and the connection was immediate. They talked about everything, from their favourite bands to their professional ambitions. Ryan was attentive, funny, and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know her better. At work, Laura couldn't contain her excitement. She talked to Mariana about her conversations with Ryan, showing her the sweet messages he sent. Philip observed everything from a distance, with an expression that mixed concern and something else. Something Laura couldn't decipher. After 2 weeks of intense conversations, Ryan finally asked Laura out on a date. They arranged to have dinner at a Thai restaurant in the city centre the following week after Laura's work shift. When Laura shared the news with her colleagues, Mariana jumped for joy, while Philip seemed even more apprehensive. "Laura, are you sure about this?" he asked, pulling her aside. "This guy seems too perfect. Don't you think it's strange how you have so much in common?" Laura frowned, slightly irritated by her friend's insistence. "Phil, why are you being so pessimistic? What's wrong with me having found someone nice?" Philip sighed, running a hand through his hair in a gesture of frustration. I just worry about you, okay? I want to make sure you're going to be okay. Philip's tone of voice and the intensity in his eyes made Laura feel strange. There was something there she wasn't fully understanding. It was then that Mariana, who had been observing the scene from afar, pulled Laura aside. "Girl, don't you see what's going on?" she whispered. "What?" Laura asked, confused. "Philip is jealous," exclaimed Mariana, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "He's in love with you. He always has been." Laura was dumbfounded. "What? No, impossible. Phil? He's my best friend." But as she said this, memories from the past 5 years began to flood her mind. Philip's small gestures, the way he was always there for her, the way his eyes sparkled when she smiled. How had she never noticed? And then, like a flash, Laura remembered something she had buried deep in her memory. When she met Philip 5 years ago, she was immediately attracted to him. His gentle manner, his sharp sense of humour, the passion with which he spoke about his work. Everything about him captivated her. But at the time, Philip was dating someone, so Laura quickly stifled those feelings, convincing herself that they would only be friends. Now, with this new perspective, Laura felt completely confused. Could there still be remnants of those feelings for Philip? And what to do about Ryan, who seemed so perfect? The days leading up to the meeting with Ryan were a whirlwind of emotions for Laura. On one hand, she was excited to finally meet in person the man who seemed to be everything she ever wanted. On the other, she couldn't stop thinking about Philip and what Mariana had said. Philip, on his part, seemed increasingly distant and worried. Laura often caught him looking at her with a thoughtful expression, but whenever she tried to start a conversation, he would evade it. On the day of the meeting, Laura was at her desk, finishing up a report, when she noticed Philip acting strangely. He seemed nervous, constantly checking his phone and typing frantically. When the workday ended, Laura began to gather her things, her heart racing with the anticipation of the meeting. It was then that Philip approached, looking determined. "Laura, we need to talk," he said, his voice serious. Before she could respond, Mariana appeared. "Laura, are you excited about the dinner?" Philip gave Mariana a frustrated look before turning back to Laura. "Please, listen to me. It's important." Laura, feeling the tension in the air, nodded. "Sure, Phil. What is it?" He took a deep breath. "You shouldn't go on the date. Ryan isn't who he seems to be." The ensuing silence was heavy. Laura looked at Philip, shocked, while Mariana let out an exasperated sigh. "Oh, come on, Philip," exclaimed Mariana. "Cut it out. You're just jealous." Philip shook his head vehemently. "No, you don't understand. I investigated Ryan." Laura's eyes widened. "You what?" "I know it sounds crazy," Philip continued, the words rushing out, "but something about him didn't sit right with me. I did some research and, Laura, he's a scammer. There are multiple women in online forums reporting a man with the same profile and the same photo. He meets them through dating apps and then executes financial scams." Laura felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. She steadied herself on her desk, trying to process the information. Mariana, however, didn't seem convinced. "This is ridiculous, Philip. You're making all this up because you don't want to see Laura happy with another guy." "I'm not making anything up," retorted Philip, exasperated. "I can show you the evidence. Laura, please believe me. I just want to protect you." The argument between Philip and Mariana escalated quickly, their voices echoing through the nearly empty office. Laura watched them, feeling lost and confused. Part of her wanted to believe Philip. After all, he had been her best friend for years. But another part of her wondered if Mariana was right. Could Philip really be acting out of jealousy? "Enough!" shouted Laura, surprising herself and her two friends. I need to think. Alone." Without waiting for a response, Laura grabbed her bag and hurriedly left the office, leaving Philip and Mariana gaping behind her. She needed air, space to organise her thoughts. Laura rushed down the stairs, her heart pounding so hard it felt like it was going to leap out of her chest. When she reached the parking lot, she stopped, leaning against a pillar. The tears she had been holding back finally began to fall. How had everything become so complicated? Just a few hours ago, she was excited about the prospect of a promising meeting. Now it felt like she was in the middle of an emotional hurricane. Laura didn't know how long she stood there, letting the tears flow freely, when she heard footsteps approaching. She turned, ready to tell whoever it was to leave her alone, but stopped when she saw Philip. He looked as vulnerable as she felt. His eyes were filled with concern and something else, something Laura finally recognised as love. "I'm glad you didn't go to meet Ryan," Philip said softly. Laura let out a trembling laugh. "I guess deep down I knew Ryan was too perfect to be real." She paused, gathering courage. "Phil, is it true that you're in love with me?" Philip swallowed hard, but his eyes didn't leave hers. "Yes," he simply replied. "For a long time." Laura's heart skipped a beat. It was as if a curtain had been lifted, revealing something that had always been there, waiting to be discovered. "You know," she began, a small smile forming on her lips. "When we met 5 years ago, I also fell in love with you." Philip's eyes widened in surprise. "You... what? Why did you never say anything?" Laura shrugged. "You were dating someone at the time. I thought it was better to bury those feelings and just be your friend. And over time, I convinced myself that that's all we were. Best friends." They remained silent for a moment, absorbing this new reality. Then, almost in sync, they began to laugh. It was a laugh of relief, of years of unresolved tension finally dissipating. "We're just a couple of fools, aren't we?" said Philip, still laughing. Laura nodded, wiping the tears, now of joy, from her eyes. "Complete fools." Philip stepped forward, closing the distance between them. "Laura, I know this is sudden, but do you think we could try? The two of us together?" Laura felt her heart fill with a joy she hadn't experienced in a long time. It was as if all the pieces of a puzzle had finally come together. "Yes," she replied, her voice firm and full of certainty. "Yes, I would love to." In the months that followed, Laura and Philip discovered that the love that had grown between them over the years was even stronger and deeper than they had imagined. They already knew each other so well, were so connected, that the romance only added a new and exciting dimension to their relationship. Of course, it wasn't all perfect from the start. There were moments of adjustment, difficult conversations about expectations and fears, but each challenge only brought them closer. A year after that night in the parking lot, Laura and Philip were holding hands in a city park watching the sunset. Laura rested her head on Philip's shoulder, feeling completely at peace. "You know," she said softly, "I think we should thank Ryan." Philip laughed. "The scammer? Why?" Laura smiled. "If it weren't for him, we might never have admitted our feelings for each other. Sometimes we need a scare to appreciate what's right in front of us." Philip kissed the top of her head. "You are right. But I prefer to thank fate for bringing you into my life 5 years ago." Laura lifted her face, meeting Philip's love-filled eyes. "And I am thankful that we have the chance to turn a wonderful friendship into an even more incredible love." Love, Laura realised, doesn't always come in perfect packages or through extraordinary encounters. Sometimes it develops slowly, built on a foundation of friendship, trust, and mutual understanding. And what a privilege it was to have fallen in love with her best friend, someone who knew and loved her for who she truly was. That night, walking hand in hand with Philip back home, Laura felt an immense gratitude. She had found not only love, but a true partnership, a connection that promised to last a lifetime. And that, she knew, was worth more than any romantic fairy tale she could have imagined. If you enjoyed, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment with a number from 1 to 5 to let us know how much you liked the story. Also, watch the video that is currently on your screen. See you soon.